Look, last night was a disaster. It was an electoral blowout. The results in New Jersey were disastrous. The results in Virginia were terrible. The results in New York, Comrade Mondami is the face of the Democrat Party. We have an actual communist jihadist. And it's important to note, Mondami is not a socialist. He is a full-on communist. He is called for seizing the means of production in our economy. He is a Marxist. That is profoundly dangerous. And look, I know there's some Republicans who are saying, well, gosh, this will be good politically because it'll be the face of the Democrat Party. I think it's terrible for America. I think, New York is the largest city in America. It is the financial capital of the world. It is the media capital of the world. And New York, we are going to see New Yorkers die.
That was Ted Cruz melting down over the election results on Tuesday. Now, to his credit, Cruz is right that New Jersey and Virginia were disastrous for the GOP. But if you're wondering why the GOP lost so badly, it probably has something to do with the gaslighting and vilifying that Ted Cruz goes on to do in this very segment, where he attacked Zohran Mamdani as a communist jihadist. The reality is that Zohran won because, unlike Ted Cruz, unlike Donald Trump, unlike Republicans, he was focused on issues that New Yorkers cared about, namely affordability. It really is that simple. And Republicans are horrified that they can no longer get away with pretending that they care about affordability while they watch prices surge as the result of Trump's trade war, and they all collectively refuse to grow enough of a spine to stand up to him. And now they're watching Democrats run on the same issue and succeed. The only difference is that while Republicans were clearly full of shit while they peddled it in the campaign trail, Mamdani seems to have every intention in the world of actually keeping his word. In fact, I spoke with him about that exact point. Here's what he had to say.
They're terrified of the prospect of us actually delivering on the same message that they ran on, because it would show in such stark contrast what they do with power and what we do with power. Right? This is a president who ran on cheaper groceries, who's now spending $300 million to remodel a White House ballroom, the same amount of money that could give SNAP benefits to 100,000 New Yorkers. So the contrast is one that would be too great for them to bear. And that's what we have the opportunity to show, is that we don't just diagnose the affordability crisis in the lives of working class New Yorkers, we also deliver on that same crisis.
Now, I can see why Ted Cruz is so upset. God forbid someone actually looks out for working class people beyond just saying it during the campaign trail and then building themselves a $350 million ballroom instead. But Ted Cruz goes on.
But number two, look, last night should be a warning sign. It should be a warning sign to Republicans across this country. The left, they're energized, they're angry. Democrats are outraising Republicans right now, 3-1, 4-1. It is dangerous, and I think on our side, there are Republicans.
Talk about a gut punch. Donald Trump got a rude awakening in New Jersey, where the early in-person voting numbers from Democratic voters was unprecedented. Apparently, Democratic voters and independent voters alike in New Jersey, and we're seeing this in other states as well, did not like that Donald Trump was throwing a Great Gatsby roaring 20s themed party while Americans are suffering, that Donald Trump has been focused on building himself golden ballrooms while ripping away SNAP benefits from the American people, that Donald Trump talks more about a triumphal arch than what he's actually doing for the American people. And when he's actually talking about the American people, it's about ripping away health care from over 20 million Americans. And I don't think the voters in New Jersey, the Democratic base and independent voters, like to see Donald Trump go on 60 Minutes and say that ICE agents were not going far enough in their brutal assaults and disappearing of human beings in the United States, including American citizens. I mean, look at these numbers from New Jersey. Day 8 of the New Jersey early voting is now on the cards. The University of Michigan voter account posts right here. And you can see the Dem percentage over GOP percentage of voters. Take a look at the purple line right there that just goes up, up, up. Do you see right there on day 8? Like a 14% differentiation between the Democratic voters and the Republican in-person early voting numbers. Let's just say the in-person early voting numbers was not too kind to New Jersey Republicans. One of the other factors that we saw was over the weekend, former President Barack Obama was there with Mikey Sherrill, who's the Democratic candidate for governor, and he gave an incredible speech. I'll share with you that in just a moment. And then on the other hand, you have the MAGA Republican candidate, Jack Ciattarelli, who says that Donald Trump should get an A or an A plus for the way he's handling everything. And MAGA Republican Ciattarelli says, yeah, well, I'll just let Donald Trump do whatever the hell he wants to do at New Jersey, get rid of our jobs, destroy the tunnel projects. I'll give Donald Trump an A as long as Donald Trump tells me to give him an A. There was other bad data from Donald Trump as well that I want to share with you before showing you what Obama said and what Mikey Sherrill said. We got the data over the weekend that Democrats lead Republicans in the fight for Congress by 8 points, 50% to 42%, the largest lead for either party on the congressional ballot in the NBC News poll since the 2018 midterms. And then when you look at this NBC poll, whether Trump administration, I call him a regime, has lived up to your expectations, or if it has fallen short on these issues, you look at inflation and the cost of living, looking out for the middle class and the economy. We're talking about 60.
Thanks very much for joining me. I think there's a lot of confusion out there regarding the government shutdown. How did it happen? Why is it continuing? How do we resolve it? I think these are the questions that are on people's minds. So let me just say a few words about that. Without boring you about Senate rules, the shutdown took place 5 weeks ago because the majority party, in this case the Republicans, need 60 votes in order to pass a government budget. They only have 53 votes. The Democratic caucus has 47. And what has always happened under these circumstances is that the majority party sits down and negotiates with the minority in order to get the 60 votes. That always happens, except now. For the first time that anyone can remember, Republicans have said it is our way or the highway. We are not negotiating it. You take it or you leave it, and that's the way it is. And then, to add insult to injury, to make it clear that they have no intention of negotiating, unbelievably, at a time when federal employees are not getting paychecks, when kids are being threatened without getting the nutrition they need through the SNAP program, when air traffic controllers are not being paid. In the midst of all of that, the Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has given his members of the House of Representatives, a 6-week paid vacation. Incredibly, they are not here in Washington, D.C. They are home. God knows doing what. So in the midst of a government crisis, what the Republicans of the House have said, you don't have to come to work. I mean, that's really quite unbelievable. So what are the issues that need to be negotiated? When we talk about negotiations, what are we talking about? And let me tell you what they are. If Democrats, and myself as an independent, were to agree to the Republican clean resolution, it would mean that over 20 million Americans would see a doubling in their health care premiums through the Affordable Care Act. 20 million. That's on average. In my state of Vermont, I'm hearing from people who are looking at a tripling or a quadrupling of their health insurance premiums. People cannot afford that. And as a result, people will lose their health care. Further, if we were to agree with the Republican proposal to pass their clean resolution, it would mean that 15 million Americans will next year be thrown off the health care they currently have, because in Trump's big, beautiful bill, the Republicans made massive cuts to Medicaid. And there are studies out there, and this point is not being made enough. There are studies out there that show that some 50,000 of our fellow Americans, lower income and working class people, will die unnecessarily every year because of that reality. 15 million people being thrown off their health care. It would also mean, if I voted yes to open the government tomorrow, that nursing homes, rural hospitals, community health centers will be devastated because of cuts in government funding. They will have to, in some cases, close down, and in other cases, just limit the number of people they can provide health care to. And by the way, I should mention, as many of you know, that all of those massive cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act were done for one reason, and that is to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%. Well, you may disagree with me, but I happen not to believe that Elon Musk, worth $500 billion, or Jeff Bezos, or Mark Zuckerberg, or Larry Ellison, or the other multi-billionaires need a tax break in which results in millions of people losing their health care. Just think about it. Tax breaks for Elon Musk and people losing the health care they need to stay alive. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, for those of you who may be following inside the Beltway politics, you may have heard that there are certain negotiations going on between moderate Democrats and Republicans. And I must tell you that I am strongly opposed to the proposal that is being floated about. What the proposal suggests is that Democrats will be given the opportunity to write their own bill to extend the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act, and that they will be able, that the Republican leadership will give them a vote on it. In exchange, they will vote for a Republican proposal to reopen the government. Sounds good. Good idea, right? It is not. The devil is in the details. The Republicans would agree.
New York City, for the time being, it looks like you are pretty screwed. For the time being, it looks like you are literally going to have a Karl Marx quoting, Hamas-loving, red-green alliance sicko. Yes, he is an absolute sicko. You're going to have this guy as the next mayor. A quarter century, just under a quarter century, actually, after 9/11, after the largest Islamic mass terrorist attack in global history, certainly in American history, but find me another single casualty event that killed that many people as were tragically killed on September 11th, 2001, a day that as a native suburban New Yorker myself, I remember all too well. Less than a quarter century later, they are going to have a Muslim mayor, and not merely a Muslim mayor, but a Muslim mayor who has refused repeatedly to utterly condemn things such as globalize the Intifada, who injected his unique far-left noxious brand of Middle East politics, somehow injected that into a municipal election there for various identitarian identity politics reasons there.
So Republicans are brooding over Tuesday's election results, especially since they can't spin it in their favor. Welcome back to the Michael Cohen Show on our continued journey to 500,000 subscribers. We had another great day yesterday, thanks to you. So again, hit subscribe, watch, comment, and share, because this stupidity, it's not coming to an end. But today, I do actually want to go over what GOP officials and Fox News hosts have been saying this week. Some, of course, are taking the blue tsunami, well, let's just say better than others. Sean Hannity, well, he tried to claim that the election results don't indicate much about our country's direction. Play that clip.
But this brings us to last night's election. Unfortunately, the results really did not, in spite of what some people are trying to claim, it did not indicate much about the overall direction of the country. Let me say it differently. Every result was entirely predictable. 3 blue states that President Trump himself lost all 3 times he ran for president, they still voted for Democrats.
Yeah, look, anybody can play with numbers and statistics. Could you imagine what they would be saying if, in fact, that the results were different? This is a referendum on Trump's incredible, big, beautiful bill. This is a referendum on Trump's economy and his strength in dealing with foreign adversaries and with the entire world in the implications as it relates to tariffs. I mean, this is the nonsense that they would say. So, of course, they have to placate to their audience. Oh, this has nothing to do with anything. This is a true referendum. All right. And by the way, let me be clear as well. New Jersey is not necessarily a blue state. It's really more purple. I also want to allow you to have me fact check you, Sean, because on Monday, you know what you actually said? You said that the election was neck and neck. Play that clip.
And in New Jersey, the gubernatorial race remains neck and neck. Right now, every result was entirely predictable. 3 blue states that President Trump.
Yeah, like I said, did you notice in the first picture, you actually had Citarelli up by 1 percentage point, plus, of course, the minus of error, right, of polling error. But they had him up by 1 point. Now, Ted Cruz, he actually went on Hannity's show, and at least he was honest about the situation, saying that Tuesday's election was a disaster. Play the clip.
Look, last night was a disaster. It was an electoral blowout. The results in New Jersey were disastrous. The results in Virginia were terrible. The results in New York, Comrade Mondami is the face of the Democrat Party.
Yeah.